Julian used to be a puppet. He didn't realize it, but every person he met held a string attached to his nervous system. If his boss gave him a side-eye, Julian's heart rate would spike for 3 hours. If a girl didn't text him back, he'd check his phone every 45 seconds, drowning in a sea of, "What did I do wrong?" If someone cut him off in Chicago traffic, he'd spend the next mile gripping the steering wheel, rehearsing an argument he'd never have. Julian was reactive. He was a leaf in a hurricane, blown around by the opinions, moods, and actions of people who didn't even care about him. He was exhausted from the constant emotional up and down. He realized that as long as he was reactive, he was controllable. Then, Julian saw a man in a crowded, chaotic subway station. People were shouting, trains were screeching, and the heat was unbearable. But this man was sitting perfectly still. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't fidgeting. He looked unfazed. He looked like he was in a different dimension. In that moment, Julian realized that being unfazed isn't about being a jerk or being cold. It's about emotional sovereignty. It's the ability to keep your internal climate steady regardless of the weather outside. Tonight, Julian is cutting the strings. This is the blueprint for becoming the eye of the storm. Julian began his transformation with the physicality of stoicism. He realized that you cannot have an unfazed mind if you have a frantic body. He learned about the autonomic nervous system. When someone insults you or a crisis hits, your flight or fight response, the sympathetic nervous system, kicks in. Your breath becomes shallow, your pupils dilate, and your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, shuts down. You become a lizard. Julian started practicing the 4-second rule. Whenever he felt a spike of emotion, anger, anxiety, or embarrassment, he would pause. He wouldn't speak. He wouldn't react. He would take one deep 4-second breath through his nose and a 6-second exhale through his mouth. This triggers the vagus nerve, telling the brain, "The building is not on fire. You are safe." He realized that the unfazed look is actually just a delay. It's the gap between a stimulus and your response. While everyone else reacts in 0.5 seconds, Julian started reacting in 5.0 seconds. That 4.5-second gap is where his power lives. In that gap, he chooses his response instead of letting his hormones choose it for him. He adopted the poker face protocol. He stopped using high-pitched customer service voices. He stopped nodding excessively to show he was listening. He flattened his affect. By controlling his external expression, he found he could more easily control his internal state. He was no longer leaking energy through his face. Next, Julian addressed the psychological leaks. He realized he was caring about things that didn't actually exist, specifically, other people's perceptions of him. He adopted the spotlight effect realization. He realized that most people are so obsessed with their own 50 tabs open and their own insecurities that they aren't actually thinking about him at all. He was performing for an audience that wasn't even watching. This realization was terrifying at first. Then it was the most liberating thing he'd ever felt. He implemented the stoic filter, the dichotomy of control. He began to categorize every event into 2 buckets. The internal, my thoughts, my actions, my character. The external, everything else. If it fell into bucket 2, Julian practiced radical indifference. If his project was rejected, he focused on bucket 1. Did I do my best work? Yes. Then the rejection is a variable I cannot control. It is noise. He learned about negative visualization. Every morning, Julian would spend 2 minutes imagining the worst-case scenario. He'd imagine getting fired, getting dumped, or losing his health. By preloading the pain, he removed its power. When small inconveniences happened during the day, they felt like nothing because he had already survived the end of the world in his mind at 6 a.m. He stopped asking for feedback on his character. He stopped saying, "Does that make sense?" after he spoke. He realized that when you ask for validation, you are handing someone a weapon to use against you. An unfazed man is his own judge and jury. The real test came from social aggression. In the high-stakes world of Chicago architecture, people use subtle digs and power plays to knock you off balance. Julian's old self would have tried to win the argument or get defensive. The new Julian adopted the gray rock method. When someone tried to provoke him or bait him into an emotional reaction, Julian became as interesting as a gray rock. He gave short, non-committal answers. Interesting. I see. That's one perspective. He realized that anger is a confession of weakness. When you get angry at someone, you are telling them, "You have the power to change my state. You are my master." Julian refused to give anyone that much status. He mastered the dead air technique. If someone insulted him, he would just look at them. He wouldn't frown. He wouldn't smile. He would just maintain neutral eye contact for 3 seconds longer than was comfortable. Usually, the other person would start to stutter or walk back their comment. He found that silence is the ultimate mirror. It reflects the other person's ugliness back at them without Julian having to get his hands dirty. He stopped over-explaining. He realized that explanations are for the guilty. If he made a decision, he stated it. If someone didn't like it, he let them sit with that feeling. He wasn't responsible for their emotional regulation. He was only responsible for his own. 6 months later, Julian had achieved emotional bulletproofing. It didn't mean he didn't feel things. It meant he didn't identify with the feelings. He started seeing emotions like the weather in Chicago. One day it's raining, sadness. The next day it's a heat wave, anger. Julian realized he is the sky. The sky doesn't care about the weather. The sky just is. His productivity skyrocketed. Because he wasn't wasting 40% of his daily mental RAM on social anxiety or resentment, he could funnel all that energy into his designs. He was doing the work of 3 people because his mind was clean. He realized that being unfazed made him a leader. In a crisis, everyone looks to the person who isn't panicking. Because Julian stayed calm when a major client threatened to pull a contract, his team stayed calm. He saved the deal not by being smart, but by being unshakable. He looked back at the puppet he used to be. He realized that caring what people think is just a form of narcissism. It's the belief that everyone is looking at you. By letting go of his ego, he found his power. He was no longer a background character in a drama. He was the director. Julian is sitting on a bench in Millennium Park. The city is buzzing around him, but he is a statue of calm. He looks at the camera, at you. "You're tired," he says. "You're tired of being affected. You're tired of one bad text message ruining your entire afternoon. You think you need to be tougher. You think you need to fight back. You don't. You need to stop giving people permission to exist in your head. Starting today, I want you to find your anchor. Next time someone tries to knock you off balance, don't move. Don't speak. Take that 4-second breath. Realize that their opinion of you is a reflection of them, not a reality of you. The world is a chaotic, loud, and often mean place. You can't control the world, but you can control the man standing in the middle of it. Stop being a leaf. Become the mountain. Be the person who is unfazed by literally everything. Your power is in your silence. The storm is coming. Are you ready to be the eye?